Welcome. Welcome to this week's BTO talk on generative AI. My great pleasure to have you here. My name is Michael Alf, calling from Lisbon, and I'm here with my two partners. Over to you, Markus.
Hello. My name is Markus Kuiper, professor at the National University of Singapore, but currently in Germany, awaiting a freezing winter. Over to you, Rob. Where are you?
Yes, Rob Thurner, running digital transformation programs across various markets today and this week in Saudi Arabia, where it's pretty hot and the sun's just going down, and looking forward to our session today. And Michael, some tech news, always a good place to start. So what have you picked up this week to share with us?
Absolutely. I think there's I picked some really interesting news. Actually, at the moment, there's the Microsoft Ignite event, which you can attend also virtually if you want. There's, of course, the talk of the town is AI, but that's not the tech news I picked, because when you think about the current rules, all of them are basically US-based. And there's one big exception, that's Mistral from France. And they just came out with some big news and some updates. They have a really competitive model now, which of course for all European companies, but even for other companies who look more towards Europe, in that context, Europe and Singapore just agreed on a closer collaboration around the regulations. So there is interest, of course, what is Europe doing? And Europe has now a model which is run in Europe. And I think that's good news and big news for Europe on a positive side. So that's kind of to start with. So if you are in Europe, check it out, Mistral, or reach out, of course, to us so we can help you with that as well. What are we talking today? What's our theme today, Rob?
So we thought we'd give you a principle to practice theme to think through today, and triggered by a workshop I've been running here in Riyadh in Saudi this week around data analytics, visualization and storytelling. And the way we do these workshops, this one for one of the government ministries, is present the principles, get them thinking about the practice, and the activity of the workshop are really focused on how they can apply the principles, and then this discussion. And inevitably, as one would expect, the topics lent towards AI and automation. And I think for the fourth workshop running, we've landed on the HR department, seeing some huge opportunities to use data in more effective ways and replace a lot of manual processes with automation. And what I was fascinated by in this workshop, as with others previously, is a really high level of understanding about the principle of what AI can do. But when you ask what they're actually doing, it's rather underwhelming. And they seem to have a view, as others do, that they could probably cut their headcount by 30%. They could maybe reduce their costs by 50% if they would bring in some automation examples. And there's a really clear use case here in terms of finding talent, using GenAI tools to look for the right kind of talent, go out there on LinkedIn and find the right kind of people matching to job descriptions, and then to find ways of automation around the interviewing process, which often takes a long time, and bring that in. And the real focus this one was around performance appraisals and how they can replace a lot of manual processes on spreadsheet updates, and then mapping that dynamically to high performers who are ripe for promotion, maybe a pay rise or a different job, and others who aren't performing quite so well, get them on a training program and get them trained up so they can maybe make it in the next financial year. And then for those who aren't doing so well, develop some career progression plans. So this is quite a well understood principle. And what was really great, I found in this workshop, was being able to do some prompting and get them to see how easily one can map out not just the roadmap and the different stages they need to take through, but the multi-agent solution. So bringing together these different tools. Michael, it's a tool we've used in some of the workshops we've run together. And by the end of it, there really is an aha moment. And wow, we thought this was going to be really difficult. We can do it quickly. And here are going to be some quick benefits. So by way of context, that's the principle to practice as I see it. And I'm very curious to reflect with you guys. How do you see this barrier being overcome within departments, and how can they help themselves, or rather with some assistance perhaps, how can others help them to see the light and turn the idea into a plan? You know, we've got a new financial year just around the corner. Now's the right time to be planning how to do this. So Marcus, you're in front of clients all the time. What's your take on that conundrum?
Yeah, it's the principle to practice is a common theme in any organization right now who actually thinks about AI. What I find out, and I think the two of you come across this a lot as well, is that there usually is a handful of people who I call AI evangelists or AI experts, and they are completely convinced. And in this case, I had two clients this week. One client is actually in the field of data analytics and predictive data analytics, and they use a lot of AI. And they have one challenge, Rob. They actually produce solutions based on AI and GenAI for customers, but the people inside the organization does not use AI much. The maximum the CEO shared with me, they use it is on their phone as ChatGPT, for example. So what they actually, as an AI company, need to develop, and they are doing that, that's why I'm involved, is how can we bring our own people from being really anxious about what does AI do to us, to I'm curious to learn about how I can use it in my own company and then provide better customer service. But the one quote this CEO shared with me was, the fact that we are an AI company doesn't mean that we all have to love AI inside the company. And on that note, I would like to pass on to Michael, because what do you think about it? You know the technical side very much. So what is it possible to be an AI company and not everyone in the company does AI?
That's a good question. I mean, I would kind of reframe the question saying, is it possible that you work for Volkswagen and not drive a Volkswagen? It's
yes.
Potentially, but it's not easy. Yeah. So, and look, it depends, of course, a little bit on the functions you have. Yeah, there are certain functions which are kind of relatively early or somehow behind in terms of the adoption of AI. And the learning curve, by the way, is the same. Yeah. So I mean, everyone, even in an AI company, they have to learn. The Amazon guys, they have to kind of learn certain things, how AWS works. Yeah. So in the same for Google. So everyone has the same problems. The Microsoft, I mentioned Microsoft Ignite at the moment. I mean, not everyone is kind of using everything around what is possible. So there was actually one presentation I briefly looked into where they have their own IT product team, which is actually tasked to roll out Office 365 and Copilot within Microsoft to make them the biggest user. So they face the same problems because it's just human beings, saying, well, that's too hard. And in non-tech companies, they have a big problem. Yeah, so because it takes effort, it takes additional effort, and I see that with myself, and we see that. Yeah, so I mean, I'm using it a lot, and I could do more. Yeah, even I could do a lot more. Yeah, so being really consistent and getting better and rethinking what I'm doing and what I'm using. So I think there is an adoption kind of curve, if you like. And my perspective is it's a clear CEO responsibility to make that happen. On that note, I think I read, I think it was week, I think it's JP Morgan, all 100% of their new hires on whatever level, as a prerequisite, they're going through a GenAI training. 100% of them. Because they know how important it is. This is coming from the top. This is what we see with clients. When the CEO stands there, then they are investing for 200 managers, 200 leaders, 2 days. That's 500 days. That's a lot of money, which they are investing, but it will pay off. So that's kind of what I'm seeing right now happening.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting, and it's great to hear that with organizations of that with that clout and of that respectability, they realize the future is making sure their teams have the skills, the knowledge to do this. But there is certainly a question I'm seeing, and it comes up again and again. There is some risk associated with trying to do something in a different way and use technology, which by very definition does present some potential risks. Data being leaked, coming up with a prototype solution which may actually give you an undesirable result. And a lot of organizations, particularly in the public sector and in the banks, where I'm doing a lot of work at the moment, are saying, actually, I'd rather have someone else take that risk and be the first to make the mistake rather than put my neck on the block. And if it goes wrong, then that's going to harm my promotion prospects, back to my earlier example. So getting these change agents empowered and getting away the fear of failure and managing expectations that, you know what, chief exec, this might not work as planned, but we need to do it anyway. That seems to be the place a lot of them are getting to now. And what's, again, Marcus, I'll go back to you. What's your view on how we can take away that fear and really empower people just to go for it? Even if there is a risk there, it's a risk worth taking. How do we manage expectations upwards and make that risk of a failure tolerable and indeed something that we should just accept, soak it up and go for it? How do we do that?
Well, I think thanks. It's a brilliant question, which makes me think about a lot of things we have been talking about for the last 12 months as well. But I think principle number one, if you fail to get into GenAI, you will fail in the future. That is not a principle, that's almost a law for the going forward. Secondly, you need to be, if you are the leader of your organization or your department or your business unit, you need to get into GenAI as well. And it doesn't mean that you become an expert. It means that you listen to us, you listen to a lot of others, and you become more educated. The third thing is, and I wanted to share that as from another company I just spoke today with, they are actually in space, ladies and gentlemen, and they think about how AI can help them in their space operations. And the CEO was very clear to your point, Michael and Rob. He said, my priority number one is not to educate everyone in the organization about GenAI in the next 5 months. Because in Q4, I have a different problem, and in Q1 next year, I have a different problem. But my priority is to get everyone in this business unit A, which I can't mention now, to get up to standard with GenAI, because this is where I put my most money in. And then I will make the others look at them and say, oh, wow, they have moved the needle. How did they do this? They create this pull effect inside the organization, and he says, you know what? You will be next, because I know that you are making the second most money, and so on and so on, right? So I find that very clear. Look, in space, they are all scientists. They are very, very clear, Rob. They know what risks are. They can measure every little thing. That is the answer they give. I go where the money is, and I make sure people understand how to make money, and my investment will pay off. Many times.
Yeah, and as with anything, if you want to get someone to change behavior, you can explain how it works, show them the video. If you can give them an example of how it has been done before, back to basics, a use case that shows here was the problem, here was the idea, the experiment, and here was the result. That allows them and gives them a real visibility about where they go next, what's their next step. Someone else has done it, which somewhat takes the risk out, and it gives them an expectation about what they can be following. And of course, everyone wants to be seen as the change agent, the one who's jumped on quickly. And that's a cultural question, isn't it, Michael? Developing a culture where it's good to put your hand up and go for it. And if you're involved in that way of thinking, one would think that you're on the fast track to being noticed and not being passed over for opportunities when they come up.
Yeah, I think you make a very interesting point, Rob, that you link that to either kind of culture change or kind of changing the organization, and it's actually on that magnitude. And as we know, it requires a top-down and a bottom-up approach. Yeah, to get kind of to a successful change, you need a strong commitment from the top, and you need a strong involvement, yeah, of the individuals, and only then you can actually succeed. And it's interesting that we link this technology that strongly already, yeah, to kind of really change management, which I think is exactly the right direction. I see another, and closing a little bit on the time, but I see another potential risk, which is reflected a few times in conversations, and that is that the expectations of the CEOs and the C-level are sometimes too high. So they talk to us, to McKinsey, to whoever. Yeah, we are not saying that, but kind of there are a lot of people out there. And of course, if you do a training and after 2 days you create a prototype, you lean towards, that's actually very easy. Yeah, and so their expectation is then, dear HR department, dear procurement department, I want to see something next week, or maybe at the end of next month. Yeah, and the reality is a lot more complex because kind of the whole architecture is complex. The risk mitigation is important. Yeah, the ethics, kind of all these topics we are talking about in our trainings have to be taken into account. You also have the hallucination problem and kind of the reliability. All these questions come up, and so therefore the actual implementation, and this is what we're seeing right now, it's very slow. Yeah, so there's first solutions coming up, in various organizations, but most are still at an early kind of, what do we say, more principle and practicing level than actually in a practice level. So kind of putting something into practice. So I think that's another component. Any thoughts on that, Markus?
Well, I guess the question is, how can we help people to get started? And the best is the best way we have found out to deal with the situation is actually play scenarios. 2 words: play scenarios. Playing basically inclines that you have fun and it's risk-free and you can make mistakes and no one is laughing at you and what do you know, Rob, you don't know how to prompt. What is this actually what you're doing here? And you say, okay, you show me how you do it, And the second is that you have a number of scenarios which go into HR, marketing, finance, procurement, and the list is as long as you want it to be. And where to start with this, Rob?
We've created a tool which is now out there. We're actively running workshops that include it, and it's a simulation tool. We're calling it GenAI Maverick. And as teams, you come in, as I link there on the screen, you'll see a landing page. You play as teams, and we set a series of different scenarios, and we ask you some questions which are not, it's obvious, it's that question, that's the answer. They're very carefully worded, and there is some nuance, some subtlety between them. And the idea is that by going through these scenarios, it opens your eyes to some of the challenges and some of the things that you may not have thought through, and it provides an excellent foundation to then build into more in-depth customized workshops that then allow us to develop prototypes and hackathons, and that's really building some steam now in the various markets where we're operating. So we'd love to share more information on the GenAI Maverick with you, and please get in contact. There's a link at the bottom of the screen. Any last thoughts, Michael, before we close today?
Look, Rob, I think you closed it perfectly. Yeah, reach out to us. Here's the link. Get in touch, and we love helping you on this exciting journey. There's so much more to come. So, get onto the train, and see you next week again.
All righty, good place to finish. Thanks so much for your time today.